Politics is the platform, but economy is the discourse as Nigerians facing very harsh socio-economic conditions are fretting over who becomes the country's next chief executive officer and what his administration will bring to the table. I'm turning now to Arise political editor Sumner Sambo, who is the thick of all the politics and intrigue of the field of play ahead of the first quarter 2023 general elections. Good evening to you, Sumner. Thanks for making it this evening. The political circuit of the 2023 general elections, how is this shaping up so far? I'm sure you're listening to Kwakwanso there, Senator Rabiu Kwakwanso of the NNPP. Yesterday it was the NBA conference. The politicians took over from the lawyers to speak about whatever they're going to do coming through 2023. So tell me a little bit more about how the space, the landscape is being filled right now, and who is saying what.
Thank you so much, Bosun, and good evening to our viewers. It's interesting times that we're in. Gradually, the Nigerian politicians are beginning to feel the pulse of what the 2023 elections will be like, and the desires of Nigerians not to listen to politics of calumny, but to actually pay attention to the issues that will help drive the next federal government that will be inherited by whoever wins. Now, from Kwakwanso today, hearing about his plans for the maritime industry, and of course, you know, NNPP has its offshoot from a founder of the party who actually has some investments in the maritime sector before Kwakwanso came into the party. So it's good to know that he's beginning to align his policies within that participation. And of course, I would think that he's trying to fashion his policy document towards the blue economy, which is the in thing across the continent and of course globally, and how to harness the best opportunities that are available within the sea, and of course the how to drive a new narrative of delivering economic growth using the resources of the sea and all of that. Now, compared to what had happened yesterday at the NBA National Conference, I think we are beginning to move towards a conversation on what the Nigeria of 2023 would look like. Because trust me, Bosin, the next president has a tough task ahead of him. It's not just easy for you to come out and say you want to be president of Nigeria any longer. I mean, the rhetoric won't sell this time around. I can tell you that it's only good policy documents that will be able to drive voters' desires towards whatever political candidate that they would be voting for. Because the realities are all here for us to see. The economic growth has been shrinking. We haven't had so much growth in the last 2 years, for example. And of course, the government has been struggling with revenue. So the conversation is, what would the presidential candidates do better? And what is the electorate expecting from them? Now, you will see that there's an attempt at driving conversations based on frivolities, but Nigerians are resisting such frivolities. I mean, yesterday you would have seen that despite the things that Kashim Shettima, the APC vice presidential candidate, has said at the NBA conference, some people just decided to, you know, focus more on what he was wearing and all of that. I mean, you know, it's a sort of caution to the electorate also to understand that the issues that will be placed before them in 2023 should be higher than some of these things that they tend to want to swim around with. So if you listen to what Atiku Abubakar said yesterday, I mean, his policies were put before Nigerians. And these are policies that a lot of Nigerians should be discussing. What do we want education to look like? What do we want the economy to look like? Look at what Peter Obi was also saying. The issues of competence, the issue of character, why Nigerians should not vote based on ethnicity, tribalism, why it's important for us to look at the economic indices that are facing us before us, and then look at how we can fine-tune our electoral system to deliver the best president that can help us out of our problems.
So in the manner of speaking, do you think we're beginning to see some clarity in terms of the issues that differentiate the major political frontrunners and their parties? Or basically they're saying the same thing because the economy is down on all fours. So everybody right now sounds like a very smart and clever guy in the room because there's so much problem to fix. So separate the noise from the news for me. Is there any difference between what everybody is saying, or are they saying exactly the same thing just because they want the job?
They are not saying exactly the same thing. There are some themes that would look like they actually, there's a nexus between whatever all the presidential candidates are saying. But there's a separation of the men from the boys here. Let's start with Peter Obi, for example, the controversial issue of fuel subsidy. If you remember, just like about 2 months ago, he had started a conversation on what he will do with the insurmountable issue of fuel subsidy that has been with us for over a long period of time. I mean, although he was being careful in his choice of words, but from his body language, you could actually read it out there that Peter Obi has said that he's going to do away with subsidy. Now, this is going to put him in trouble with the elite class in Nigeria, people who benefit from all of this. While it's well known to everyone that the issue of subsidy is something that we can do without, but the socioeconomic impact in the first year or second year when you are going to remove that fuel subsidy will be huge. There's going to be a lot of labor disputes between the federal government and, of course, whosoever emerges as president. If he emerges as president, for example, how is he going to do it? Is it going to be a phase-by-phase removal like we've heard President Buhari trying to do, and then eventually, after what seemed like a phase-by-phase removal, coming back to take the whole hog of, continuing with the fuel subsidy, or he's just going to stop it? Remember, this was the same sort of thinking that we had anticipated when Buhari came on, and eventually he won the election. The World Bank itself had told him, look, in the first 3 months, during your honeymoon period, just remove this fuel subsidy so that I have enough monies for education, for healthcare and all of that. But of course, he kept on tethering, and of course, that 6 months, that controversial 6 months that it took him before he was able to put a cabinet in place. And of course, that really ate into his government. Now, if Peter Obi is going to do this, then he should also be preparing for the backlash from the labor and all of that. Now, if you look at what Atiku is also saying, it's very clear to everyone that Atiku is a capitalist who wants to see a perspective that tries to bring a capitalist economy that's dependent on, investments driven by those who want to make profit. But of course, you also have to look at our history. We've had a history whereby the economy is built on social services more. Subsidies are still there. And with his some of the policies he's beginning to bring in place, there may be some fears in some quarters. But I can tell you that from what he had said yesterday, it gives us an inkling that, look, he's well prepared. He has put his policy team in place. But some of the things that he's saying may have to be reviewed, because in the face of realities, based on what he has said before, that he's going to privatize some of the moribund state institutions and infrastructure that we have, some people may be initially afraid of it. But if you see what happened in 2007 when Obasanjo was going and he privatized all the NNPC, the refineries and all of that, if we had gone beyond that, by now, I think our economy would have moved much more higher compared to the refineries that we have now, paying people, docile workers who are not doing so much. And of course, it keeps eating into our purse. Now, go to Tinubu, for example. They have been talking about the issue of security and what they did in Lagos and what they did in Borno, how they are going to replicate it. Yes, these are very good conversations that we should have. What is it that Tinubu did in Lagos that can work at the federal level? Is it the issues of, for example, taxation? Is it the issues of, for example, coalescing the issues of revenue generation? The greatest challenge that will be facing the next president is the issue of revenue.
Okay,
so if Tinubu seems to have an edge there, then he will need to explain to us in better ways, in more concrete terms, how he intends to do that by gaining more revenues and, of course, not being accused.
Yes. Sumner, because of time, I'm just going to ask you this, because what I found yesterday was that the platform where those folks spoke, these front runners in the political, was the Nigerian Bar Association. So do you think we need to have a bit more of platforms such as this? Perhaps the stock exchange, yes, should grab all of them together and say, come talk to us about investment, how you're going to do exchange rates, what you're going to do with the stock market, what are you going to do with wealth creation? Should they grab them in the Nigerian Medical Association and say, come talk to us about healthcare and things like that, rather than just talking to, well, with due respect, just going on the street and visiting some places where you can't really find what they're really talking about. So the NBA platform, what's your view about that yesterday? Do you want to see more of that?
Yes, I mean, this is a professional group. The rule of law, the issue of the rule of law is very, very important. You and I know that for you to boost investors' confidence, you need to create an atmosphere where people will know that the rule of law actually counts. Just like former President, late President Umar Musa Yar'Adua has said that the rule of law, obeying the rule of law was one of the cardinal principles of his 7-point agenda. Now, that is important. That's why the NBA platform is there, because if you don't create an atmosphere of people being able to trust the judgments that come from your court, obeying some of the business practices and regulations that you put in place, there may be some fear. So yes, it's good. But like you have said, it's an ongoing conversation. And like I would like, I mean, a lot of people to know, when you have such platforms, it gives you the opportunity to create better believability. Like, for example, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group is going to be coming up in the next few months.
Yes.
In a couple of months.
Couple of weeks.
That will also be a very good platform for them to be able to sell their ideas if they are invited. And of course, the NESG will do us a very good dose of, surprise if they do that, because some of them are going to be running away from presidential debates. So
this is the debate already. That yesterday at NBA was a debate. That was a debate. That was good. And I think we need more of that. But I want them to come to Market Street. I want them on Broad Street. I want all the presidential candidates and the vice presidents on Broad Street. I want them to talk about Naira-dollar exchange rate and all of that. Let's test them out on the numbers. Thank you so much for those insights, Sumner Sambo, our vice political editor out of Abuja studios. Have a great evening, everyone. And that's the package for tonight. I am Bosi Namafaye. See you next time.